Hey everyone, I'm Airwingmarine, and welcome back to the channel and my next Escape From Tarkov video. I'm going to do a quick little money guide here on the flea market, talking about how to save you some money so you're not throwing money away that you don't need to, and you're making a little bit more when you're selling stuff. With that said, let's jump right into it. All right, eventually we're going to go through and we're going to sell all of the stuff I have here. Talk about a couple of ideas and principles that I use when I'm selling stuff to show you guys how to do a little bit better. But first, I want to do just a quick little over guide of the flea market to talk about some mistakes I see a lot of people doing. First off is when, like with fuel and armor and things like that, when you're in the flea market and you're looking at, let's say, the expeditionary fuel tank, and you want to go sell it, and they're all 60s to 60s, make sure you close this operational only check mark, and it'll show up. And this also applies with armor. So when you're looking at like the big one would be gazelles, right? So some of the tasks that you need is to buy a gazelle, and you don't necessarily need to be a 60 out of 60 gazelle. So if we come in here and we look, and you look at ones that are for fence or that are broken, they are quite a bit cheaper than the ones that are not. So we'll turn the filter back on and see what we're at. So we're like 80 to 90K. But if you turn the filter back on, you know, you're spending 110, 100. So there's about 20, 30K you can save right there. And this applies with the gazelles, the zabralos, some of the other stuff that you need to do. So make sure you don't, this is default on. So make sure you always check when you're looking for cheaper prices, because sometimes it's cheaper to buy a broken one and repair it than it is to buy a brand new one. And it still works pretty good. Another thing that's super important is, for example, weapon parts. So if you're doing your gunsmith task lines, first off, you should go check out my guide videos. But more importantly, when you look at stocks like this M870 4 stock, man, this thing's expensive, right? And there's a lot of these parts that are like that. But what most people don't realize is if you come in here and you change this right here where it says barters, boom, look at that. You have a barter for one rechargeable battery. One rechargeable battery. And it gives you the same thing. You know what a rechargeable battery costs? Not very much. 1/10. So keep that in mind. If you get sticker shock when you buy something on the flea market or when you're looking to buy something, go check for barters. Make sure there's not a barter to make it cheaper, because most of the time there is, especially if you're doing task related stuff. All right, so for the meat and potatoes, let's talk about how to make some money on a lot of this stuff on the flea market. Now, there's a couple of things here. If you're selling like a weapon part, for example, and I don't have any here, but like let's say you're selling a foregrip, or you're selling a flashlight, or you're selling a sight, and you've got one. Usually, if you don't have all night to let it sit, you want to sell at the bottom of the list. But when it comes to some of these bigger stacks, like PBM ammo, right? When you look in here and you see 4, 27, 180, 16, 232, right here's our first big guy, right? 960 rounds. And you got another one right here, 989 rounds. This is kind of how this goes. So even though the bottom price is 400, the top price is basically 500. When people come in to buy ammo, people hate buying 4 rounds at a time. If you look, that 4 rounds is still there, and the rounds above it sold. So this 200, this 495, we refresh here a couple of times. This is going to sell before some of these, because when somebody comes in and buys it, they're not going to buy this in fucking 10 stacks. I mean, they might if they're looking to save money, but you're going to go, like when I'm going to go buy ammo, I'm going to go to the biggest stack I can buy, so I'm not competing with people to buy it. So when you want to list PBM or other ammos, this works with all ammos. Don't just list at the first price you see here, especially if you've got a trader cutting you off. Don't try to sell for 120. There's no reason to. Obviously, all these people are selling it for a higher price for a reason. Now, 500 is kind of the peak here for PBM. Just so we don't sit on it, I'm going to sell it a little bit cheaper. We'll go 475 and add it and sell it. Now, anybody in here with 200 is pretty much crafting, or 400 or whatever it may be. These guys are probably crafting too. So we'll throw that up there for 200. Now, when it comes to really, really volatile items, things that are flying off the shelf, right? So let's look at bolts. If you've tried to buy bolts in like the last 2 weeks, you know it's basically impossible to get anything in like the first 10. This stuff sells out so damn fast. And see, this guy listed for 16,000. He had no reason to list for 16,000. You can list in the 35,000 range, especially if you have multiples, because people are going to look for these 4s and these 3s and stuff like that to find ones. So even though right now we're selling in these 23s, see, these are 37. Watch, I'm going to list these for 39, and we'll see how long it takes them to sell. Probably not very long. Even though it's way above the prices, because there's 3 of them, people are going to be pouncing on them to try and buy them. because of how fast this changes, because this is just a screenshot, right? This is just a quick glimpse of that moment you hit refresh. And as soon as somebody buys stuff, all of that disappears. And then you're going to see all of this stuff pushed down, but we'll sell. I'm pretty confident of it. We haven't sold, oh man, right there go the bolts, all 3 of them. And I sold for 20K less, or 23,000 more than that one guy did at 16,000. And it took all of about 15 seconds longer. Now with circuit boards, this can apply as well. Circuit boards aren't super volatile right now because it's kind of the end of the night. I'm 10 o'clock my time, which is midnight Eastern. So when you're trying to sell stuff like circuit boards, what I do is usually get a big stack of them and sell them at night when I'm logging off. Same thing with meds, same thing with bleach. Now, fuses are something that get used up a lot because you need to buy them in stacks of 5 for the craft. And that's what drives a lot of this is why are people buying these things? You know, why do people buy ammo? Because they want to put 200 rounds on their body when they go into raid. Or why do people buy fuses? Because they need to buy 5 of them for a craft, or they're buying 1 or 2 for the barter. But nonetheless, we look in here and you'll see a lot of these are selling for 10, 12, 13,000. I'm going to list for 13. I'm not going to list on the bottom. And I would list even higher if I had more time, like if I was going for a raid, because they'd sell. But I want to be able to leave my slots open so I can show you guys as we get through this. Now, with matches, these things have kind of been volatile. They've been going up and down all over the place because some of the trades they've been making, they're not worth a ton now. Sometimes they're worth like 12K. So when I get matches like this, I almost always keep them because I use them so much for crafts. But for purpose here, I want to show you guys, I want to sell them. As we go through and you look, you'll see some of these numbers diminish. So you got 2s and 1s and stuff like that because you don't buy these in big stacks. You usually buy them in 1s or 5s. Sometimes you buy them a lot. When the trades were going for the fuels, it was driving a lot. But you'll probably see these things filter down to 10, 11, 12K, and then they'll fall back down again. And then they'll filter back up to 10, 11, 12K. So if you've got 10 minutes to let this sit, put it at this mid-range right here at about 11,000. And that's what we'll do with these. We'll sell them for 11,000, and there's 5 of them. Bigger stacks are always better to save because it doesn't take any more slots to sell 1 than it does to sell 5. Now, one other thing you can do, and I don't have an ammo here. Let me pull some ammo out to show you. What do we got a lot of? We'll do SNB. One other thing you can do is if you don't want to get flooded with a ton of sell stuff and things like that, you can come in here and sell these in big stacks. So right now everybody's selling like this, right? And we're going to sell it cheap just so I can show you how it happens because it's only SNB. So we've got 70 rounds of SNB, right? Let me grab my calculator. So what's 70 times 400? That is 28,000. So I can come in here and I can add this for 28,000, and we're not selling for 28,000 a round. We're going to sell for the whole kit and caboodle, 28,000. That's what that little require for all items in offer. All items in offer. So basically somebody has to buy all or nothing. And we're going to sell it at 400, which will be cheaper. So we're going to place offer and it's going to list it. And when it shows up, it's going to be right here at the bottom. Now, even though that number says 28,000, it orders it correctly. People are going to see it's cheaper. And just like that, it sells. So you can sell big stacks quick, much easier that way if you want to. And save yourself a little bit of headache with getting flooded with stuff down below. Now, I'm going to show you here. We're going to list a couple other things. So bleach has kind of been hit lately. Its peak is basically 9,000. And that's what's interesting here is you can see all of these 9,000. How many bleaches are here just to get, not even kind of 9,100. We'll stop at 9,000. You can see all the numbers of here, how many bleach are in there, and there's not very much apart. So I'm not going to go up above much and sell that. I'm going to sell in this pocket. I'm going to cut myself out 50 rubles to sell quickly. And so we'll sell for 899, 8989. And that way we're kind of on the bottom of the list. And we got a whole bunch in here. We're going to tank the market. You're going to see this go down to like 8,000 and 7,000 now as people start to see these lists and they're not selling. But they'll sell here in a few hours and we'll be good. There's a couple that are not found in raid. I wanted up in there. Same thing with pile of meds. Now, pile of meds get used a lot more, right? They're constantly turning over, but there's a lot of supply for them too. They're very fluid craft. So you can catch these at high times. Right now, I've got a bunch of money sunk into these things, so I don't want to sell them for 10,005 of them, so we'll let them sit. Circuit boards are another one that can go all over the place. Sometimes they're down for 12, sometimes they're for 19. This is something that should key into you that when you open up your flea market and you see 12,000 and 19,000 in the same like screen, that shows you that these are way undersold. Where these things are all stacked together in prices is kind of where the peak price is at the market at the time. So that's what you should aim for. Now, you can see right here that our bleach is selling, and we weren't super undercut. We were a little bit, but we're not much cheaper than everybody else. And somebody else is probably going to come in and undercut me too. But now, one last thing I want to talk with you guys about is a little bit about market manipulation, though I don't look at it so much as that as just taking advantage of the situation as it is. So, for example, here, pile of meds are right now selling for, let's say, 10,000. That's what they're selling for. If I sell pile of meds for 12,000, like if that's the price and I have in my head for what I'm going to sell pile of meds for, there's a 641 fee for me because I have a level 3 intel. Do it whatever you have it on. So let's say 641 right now, which means if I buy meds for 11,359, right? I did that math right? Yeah, 11,359. Then it's the same as me selling it cost-wise in rubles or using it. And you might ask, why buy meds? Well, if you're going to buy meds, you're going to use them in your med station. So I produce pile of meds, but anytime I craft anything that uses them, I don't ever use my crafted ones or my found and raid ones. I use ones that I buy, and I just make sure that I buy them under that threshold. So right now there's 10,000, right? So I bought that one for 10. Well, I didn't buy that one for 10,000. Let's buy this one for 10,000. Okay. So now if I use that pile of med to make an AI2 here, that pile of med cost me 10,000 versus it costing me the 12,000 minus the flea market fees, so the 11,561 or 39 or 11,000 rubles that it cost me to craft it or to sell it, then you're making money that way. And on top of that, when you do that, you're taking pile of meds out of the circulation that are below where you're listing. So I could list for, a lot of times I'll list for 12,000 and I'll list like 30 or 40 meds. Like this guy did right here. He's got 11.8. So his marker's 11.8. And then anytime meds are below that, I'll just buy them. You know, you buy these, especially these one stacks. You come in and buy the one stack and you start clearing out these meds below you, and eventually yours will sell. And then you use the meds you bought to craft more stuff and make more money. And that can work for several things. That can work for red gunpowder, green gunpowder. It can work for bolts. There's lots of stuff it can work for when you're stuff that you have found in raid that you sell that you also need to craft with. And it's just a way to kind of min-max how much profit you make. Well, that wraps up the video. I hope you guys liked it. If so, make sure you hit that like button. It helps out a ton with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you haven't yet, subscribe so you see when new content shows up. I stream on Twitch most weeknights, so come by and say hi there if you want to. And we have a Discord full of chilled, laid-back people who love to help out and answer questions, as well as brag about some of our awesome loot. So the link for that's down in the description too, so you can join there if you want to. Lastly, as always, thank you guys for watching the video. Your support is amazing and helps out in more ways than you guys can imagine. So with that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you in Tarkov.